So did you get all moved, Sherry?
So maybe he's coming tomorrow. I made arrangements with Shonda to come in after hours.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Kim Harrison. Here. Edward, sorry. Councilwoman Sherry Rogers.
Here.
Councilman Randy Bowen. Councilwoman Debbie Gump. Councilman Herb Curtis. City Manager Nate Stansberry. City Attorney Brian Bailey.
Here.
Financial Director Susan Johnston.
Here.
Chief Josh Thomas.
Excuse.
Chief Jimmy Settle.
Excuse.
Street Commissioner Mike Starrett. Sanitary Director Diaz.
This is live. Right? Okay. Sorry. Wi-Fi issue. We did the best we could stall for you. I appreciate it. I got it. We're Where were we, Mayor? I'm sorry.
We're discussing the adoption of the levy rate.
Well, at this point, we submitted it to state auditors for their review. I withheld some salary information for elected officials or appointment dates or something like that. So I'll get that corrected when we submit this in there. Otherwise, we advertise it in the paper. It should have been the Democrat the last two times. I know it's all the first. I didn't confirm the second, but so I think we've met all the requirements of the levy. And we're holding our meeting tonight per state law to approve the levy on the third Tuesday or whatever it is we're meeting on. So, I mean, other than that, we received a letter right from the auditor's office saying they reviewed the budget and everything balanced and things of that nature. So I think we're set to go. I recommend we approve the levy.
If no further discussion or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the levy for 2023.
This was no change, right? From last year?
Right, it's the same tax rate, nothing's changed.
I'll move to approve the adoption of the levy rate for the fiscal year 2023.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And we'll have voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Rogers? Yes. Councilman Randy Bellin? Councilwoman Debbie Gump?
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis?
Yes.
Yeah, motion carries. Next, under new business, estimate for purchase of police body cameras.
Okay. All right, just to give you a real brief, our body cameras are in bad shape. I think we had a little fail just past couple weeks, maybe because we've had an officer out. So what we've done in our budget currently, we've got $10,000 for body cameras. We've selected this camera. We had a couple different trials of different types. This one is more expensive in the sense of the total price of $30,000. We'd like to break that out and do it over multiple years, much like we've done with our tasers. Our tasers have a multiple year contract. These have like a maintenance plan, I think, of 5 years. So they don't have any issues with them within this 5-year period. They'll replace the full camera for us, from what I understood. And this also includes a new dash camera for one of our new vehicles that we've worked into this price as well. So I'm just making I'm making the recommendation that we approve WatchGuard video in this quote for Motorola body cameras for $6,244. That'll be a year-to-year thing. It'll go down just a little bit. I think the annual invoice is showing us $57,996. So we'll try to work that into our budget.
5,000.
Yeah, 5,700.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just wanted to make sure.
Clarification. Thank you.
The extras,
Yeah.
the beautification
Yeah.
on shore. Coming out of beautification.
On the side page, we're okay.
So, and at that point, they've estimated the camera should last, they hope, about 10 years. You know, that's without any miscreants, bash them or anything like that. So,
Cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Sure.
It's nothing that pertains to this, but wasn't it last year we voted to give the police department a percentage of the traffic ticket? And I thought some of that money was supposed to be used. Was it $40, $50?
I don't remember.
Kind of that.
I think
I
you
do
guys did,
remember we
I've
did.
seen it in the minutes.
Yeah.
We've never established the workflow for getting that money over. That's on my long list. of things
Okay,
to
I
get
just
to in the
wondered because I
backlog.
know that was one of
Yeah.
the things that was brought up was to go and purchase body cameras.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. So in practice, we haven't been performing that. I think at some point we'll try to make that, figure out when you guys approve that and then go back and post date all those things and make those transactions, transfer that to that equipment fund.
I forgot about that.
Good catch.
Yeah. Okay, I'll move to approve the body cam purchase for $6,244.
We have to do the annual invoice in there as well.
I don't think so.
No.
Because it's not what on this budget. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not gonna the whole, like, the way this agreement is like our car leases, it's not gonna
Okay,
For
I
some
just
reason,
wanted-
yeah, and for
just
some
wanted to-
reason, I think from a transaction standpoint, right, you can't encumber the next council or the
Yeah.
next budget at this point. That's for informational purposes. We'll have to do that again next year, and since over 5,000, I'll come back to council, we'll make sure we're still good to go. But thank you.
So you second that? Yes. Okay. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Randy Bowen. Councilwoman Debbie Gump.
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next, agreement with Jack Gaston for electrical service.
Got a me question?
That was you.
There's a house across the street from the courthouse that has electric going into it. And the electric comes from a pole that's on the courthouse side of the street. And apparently those poles in front of the courthouse are getting taken down. And lo and behold, the electricity to the house across the street, it's not gonna have electricity. So we're trying to figure out some way to get electricity over to that house in a manner that suits us and suits the house owner, Jack Gaston. So I guess that's,
Let me jump in here real quick.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
was
sorry.
kind of taken back with it, because go ahead.
I thought maybe you had the agreement.
Oh, no, it's upstairs.
Okay.
Throw it out.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, I think I
Why
made
are
the
we establishing the pole and the electric pole? Isn't that the homeowner's responsibility?
Well, I guess that's part of this discussion is that what we'd like to do is remove the poles in front of the courthouse and put in some decorative lights, run it underground, remove all the poles. First Energy, in conjunction with Mike, they've been out there trying to figure out how we can get, because this guy's electrical service is off of those current street light poles. So we've got to get power to his house. What we've arrived upon is that they can swing it from the existing service on First Street. They can make a long span and get to his house and put the meter on the other side where it's currently existing. Typically, when these things are done, if we're the impetus for this electrical service to be moved, we've got to pay to move his electrical service to meet that new meter.
Oh, I didn't know we were the ones taking the poles off. I thought
Yeah.
that was the state.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was
No.
us.
It's in conjunction because the county is getting sidewalks
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it. So great time to do it. So
And we've never brought that to council, so I know I'm kind of springing it on you
Yeah.
to a degree. Yeah, sorry. We just kind of moved quickly in a sense. So if it's something we don't want to do, then we can scratch it and leave the poles, but this is the opportunity, I think, to get rid of those.
No, I just didn't know the background there and I was
Yeah.
like, why are we paying for losing this
Right.
pole?
So,
I have spoken with Gene King yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and we're talking approximately, won't be over $2,500, okay? And Jack Gas is all in favor of doing it, and it's getting rid of three poles.
What you do about your hometown main or something?
What's that?
What you do about your hometown main or something?
you're gonna have to go to the park.
Well, actually,
That's gonna talk, Jane Lynn,
yeah, but
Ray's working on that.
that's all for it.
yeah, and I think I'd like to see us get those decorative lights up as quickly
Oh,
as
I
we
agree.
can,
I'm for
right?
that.
I think, yeah. So we haven't priced them out or anything at this point, but I think it's probably an ARPA thing, honestly, from a budgetary
Did you
standpoint.
check with the casting place up there? We had talked about that before.
What
maybe.
was that?
The casting place making for precision up there.
I think we can get those a lot cheaper than we can him making it because metal.
Okay.
metal is up so
I know we
high
had talked
right now.
about that and you had
Yes,
thought you could
yes.
have done it cheaper.
I think with the metal being as high as it is, yeah, I think we're probably better off, because we looked at them, I looked at them,
Yeah,
like,
that
what was it? Strong way or something like that.
Steenberg or something.
Yeah.
So we have the as-built from the Main Street project, they're like they called for is called out in detail. So we looked up in the catalog to find that same model. And so we haven't gone to them and asked for a quote or anything of that, of those arrays yet, but that's coming, I think. Right now, we're just concentrating on getting the conduit in the ground and trying to get ahead of the state road paving. And then I think Larry Snyder, who's doing the county work, has agreed to work with us to get the conduit and basically get to a point where the sidewalk will be capped with a thin layer of concrete where those conduit are, so we can break it out and put the bases in once we're ready to go and not have any kind of trip hazards in the interim while we're getting things situated. So,
Big project. Oh, nice.
This is like the printer's not printing out.
I
And hopefully.
spoke
do
to Larry
this.
on it, and he's very
Yes.
He's wanted to work with us and getting those in, so he has some ideas how to put the conduit into, so he's done
Who was
this.
that, Gene?
Larry.
Larry? Is he donating?
No, he's not doing.
No, he's
I
the,
thought the conduit.
The conduit, we're gonna have to wind up buying conduit. And, it's,
You'll put it in for us, right? He's gonna lay it underneath the
Yeah.
sidewalk, so.
you'll lay it in, but,
Larry's the low bid.
and the only thing I think
He was trying.
is made is
I know.
right here. just
Hey,
really
Fred.
from
I
Mr.
don't
Gaston.
know. People have,
I
don't
think
want
we
to
need
give
to
it
have
up.
that. But I went up there with Mr. Gaston to get this done. No, I was there an hour and a half.
Yeah.
He's like 93 years old,
Yep, out every day.
out every day. We got it.
Yep.
Yeah, big hand.
You should have went to big game. My bad.
Well, while we're waiting, I met with McKinley this afternoon and the other mayors, and the state auditor, McCuskey, was there, and Travis Blosser was there, and they were saying the praises of the staff who was at the meeting yesterday, and how professional you all were, and the fact that we have quality people filling our roles. It was really good to hear. The municipal league is planning on coming soon to have lunch with us. I thought it was nice. It was a good meeting today.
We already roughed up a couple people down there, didn't we, Mike?
No, it was.
The auditor had an announcement yesterday, if you're lost.
I am.
Yeah, sorry.
I've been on cold medicine,
No,
so
no,
I don't watch the news.
They passed their tax sale bill,
Oh,
and so he
okay.
had his press conference yesterday at St. Albans.
Oh, the one that he came here and talked with
Yeah,
us about.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so Middlesbrough League sent an email on Friday and said, hey, if any mayors or whatever in the whole state will come, we'd like to have them. And so we're curious of what the final bill kind of looked like, and so we decided to jump in the car and go down to St. Albans yesterday. Try to put on a good show for Weston in the sense of being friends,
Nice,
so
thank you.
it worked out. There was one girl from Fairmont, she did something.
No, I went to the meeting today.
Terry Bennett's her name, and she was very helpful. But then, like I was talking to Suzie this morning, and Nate knows, the only way we're really gonna get any money out of this is we gotta get those properties, if they're dilapidated and they're in a state tax sale, somehow we gotta get those in our name, or we'll get this money. So, but it's not saying it won't happen. I think we can do it.
And unfortunately, they didn't get a whole lot into the details yesterday of how this is gonna work. I think a lot of it's still to be kind of determined from a regulatory side. I did read in the paper or online or something that, and I don't think they really spoke to this yesterday, but they're merging together the sheriff sale process and the tax sale process. So right now you've got this sheriff sale, right? When you first don't pay your taxes, that's an 18-month process. And then you got the tax sale, which is 6 to 8 months, it seems like, on the back end of that. So now they've somehow by law, they've decided they're gonna merge these together and try to cut it down to 6 months, they said, all
We should
together.
have dilapidated ones we're
I
talking
thought-
about.
Maybe I misunderstood, which could have been very articulate. I thought he said they would tear them down and then give them to us.
Well,
when he
that's
was
what I
here.
understood
That's what
too,
I
but then
understood,
when
that
I
they will
got-
tear them down and then they would give ownership to the city for the city to do with whatever the property.
What I got from that meeting yesterday
Yeah.
was we had to inquire, right?
The way I understood it is that they're gonna give us the right of first refusal is the term they use. And so when these go up for tax sale, we're gonna be able to go up there and say, hey, we're a municipality. We get the first chance to bid on this before anybody else does. or if other bidders do, we get to throw our hat in the ring and say, hey, we want this property. And so once we acquire it, then we can go to the state sinking fund and say, hey, we've got this tax sale property dilapidated, we guys tear it down. That's the way I understand it.
That makes sense.
But they're, like I said, Taylor told me yesterday that they're just now putting this all together, and sometime here, she's gonna send me an email and I'll include Nate in on that. But I'd like to go to that meeting when they get ready to have this. So that way-
All right. We finally got it figured out.
Okay.
Oh, you will.
Thanks, Mike.
I did. It's illegal, but
What are you gonna do there?
all our kids are going down to be the month.
I just changed.
That's good. Okay. That's all right.
No,
Well, I
no,
just-
something
Enjoy
changed.
that.
I just
They
had that
write
one,
their
and I
own
figured that's where it was
Rules
at.
and legislation and
Yeah.
some of them actually become adult teams and schools and all. Oh.
Brian, this sentence right here, removal of this pole and removal of this electrical line would cause my building need.
To be safe.
I knew about it, just trying.
You got me.
Okay. Like,
Here, you want to read
Nate uses them all the time.
Should you have language in there about the remediation of the property at the end, inspection?
You mean like if we tear up grass? replant it?
Yeah,
I think we could do that. Contracts are funny because you can put in there what you mean and not really mean it, or put something in there you thought you meant. But the more specific we can be, I think the better.
well, usually that's where a lot of problems
Yeah.
happen, and that's at the end.
And I'm totally fine with whatever language you all want to put in there. Makes me happy as a client. If that's what y'all want to do.
I'm not sure how to word it, but I think it needs to be there.
What was it?
We'll be responsible for site restoration, right?
Yes, reseeding or whatever.
Randy's gonna call him, by the way, he's gonna Zoom.
And we don't necessarily want to go in front of a court and argue this per se, because we want to be clear. But arguably rewriting the right, configuring the like, done in a manner satisfied, all that stuff. I mean, if we wanted to encompass redoing the grass and whatnot, I think you could argue that's part of the cost of putting this wire and stuff in. But I think it's better. I agree with you, Mayor. I think it's, if you want specific site restoration, I think that's better than trying to argue that these words mean
Yeah.
site restoration.
Let me comment on this. We're not disturbing this ground.
We hope
We hope we're not.
Yeah, we're coming from the pole on First Street, attaching to his house, and that will be the power company. We're only attaching from his house down and going underneath in his basement. We're not touching his ground whatsoever. We're not putting no underground cable in, no nothing.
I think we're safe with the language. Just in case anything does happen, right? We
Yeah,
knock out a
you
bridge
know,
or
you're
anything like
gonna
that.
have ingress and egress from the property, even if it's by foot. So that'll cover it. I don't know, it's just my thinking.
But there's no
That's good.
underground wire going to the town, because he did not want underground wire.
He didn't.
No, because he would have to go right straight through the Melrose property, and he didn't want to do that in case he decided, him or his kids decide to build.
Okay.
Use the wrong form of bear there.
Any questions or more discussion about the agreement, proposed agreement?
I'll just make one further comment on it. Yeah, this is our first stab at an agreement like this, and I'm sure we'll probably have, refined after this one, we'll have things we'll want to add and stuff like that. But this is the kind of thing that as we go, if we want to get lines underground on Main Street, we're gonna have to work out with every property owner this kind of agreement to get their service removed. So this, as we work on this stuff downtown, this is gonna be the first of many.
Is it Randy? He's listening. He's on.
Yeah.
Hi, Randy.
We can't hear him though.
You can't hear him?
Can you hear us? Randy, can you say something?
He's muted.
You're muted, Randy.
I was muted on his end.
Yeah, it's not us that's muted.
Okay. He may leave it on. Okay,
We have something to say, he'll do it.
sorry for the interruption.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement with the addition of language to cover any damages resulting from ingress egress to the property.
I'll make that motion, what she said.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, okay. It's been moved in second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call, please.
Councilwoman Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Bowen, Councilwoman Gubb,
Yes.
and Councilman Curtis.
Yes.
Owen, did you get one?
He said,
I'm still muted.
Still muted.
Okay, motion carries.
Hey. Sorry to interrupt, guys. I was just gonna say, Randy, if you hit the little star in the number 6 on your phone, it'll unmute it, since you called in instead of doing it on the computer. Not the pound, but the star in the number 6. Okay, I'll go back. I'll go away again. Sorry, guys.
Thank you. Okay, Nate, budget revisions?
Yeah, I don't have anything before you today. I was kind of waiting on the sales tax and I've had a real busy start to the week, but the sales tax came in today about 2 p.m. We're at 152,000. So that's $2,000 above our projection, where it should be. My thought is with the budget revision, we've overspent like in street department with salt and things of that nature. Yeah, I'm not going to try. I'm going to try to keep everything where it's at, and hopefully with the revenue that we kind of conservatively undercounted coming in, I'm hoping to take that surplus, for lack of a better word, and cover all of our expenses that we've gone over in those regards. But I think at this point, it'll be a regular meeting kind of where you'll get that budget revision to be able to approve it. That's just where we're at this point.
He's entering *6 with no result.
I'm no further help, I don't think. And I got a few other things I wrote down, especially in the manager update, but I wanted that one to be on there. We had our employee forum. I thought that was really good. A lot of kudos to Susie and Julie put it together. We fed the employees and got to talk to them about their insurance, the open enrollment period, retirement. I thought that was a really good discussion. We had some younger guys, we talked to them about the Dave Ramsey power of compounding interest a little bit. So we're going to have a follow-up meeting with Empower Retirement to try to get some people enrolled. It's a completely elective process for employees, but it's offered to all state employees. Essentially a 401k kind of mechanism for them to invest some of their own earnings into that. So we'll try to build upon what we did. We took some good notes. We didn't get as much. We wanted to have a really good PowerPoint presentation. We didn't get that far. We got the agenda on the slide, but it was good. And I thought it met the day. And we can build on that from here going forward and try to have those from time to time. Like we mentioned earlier, we went to the auditor's announcement yesterday in St. Albans to represent Weston. I also had breakfast with the city manager working group. North Central city managers have started a little, we're trying to meet monthly. And
Nice.
so I attended, Shinston was there, Clarksburg was there, Granville, myself and Morgantown, Ken Hall. So I thought that was really good. We got to talk about, vent a little bit, about our struggles and challenges, but also give a lot of feedback and things of that nature. So they were really receptive to having me there. This was the second meeting. I missed the first. But I'll try to continue to go and represent us as a city. And people are asking questions about us. We're kind of an enigma out there to a degree, right? So when we start showing up, they're like, Weston, tell us a little bit about yourself, right? They wouldn't know about what we're doing and things. So that's good. And we've heard good things from people. We went to Elkins today, Brian, myself, and Jimmy Settle to speak with their fire department and city attorney. I think it was treasurer was in the room with us, right? About their first due billing for fire service. And so just to give a little bit of primer on that, that is where.
Yeah, he's unmuted. He texted and said he's unmuted.
Can you hear us?
Yes, how are you all doing?
Hi, Randy.
Good, thanks.
Okay. So first due fire, we've got a region that encompasses portions all the way to the Upshur County line, down to the Braxton County line on 79, out toward Orlando, those areas that our volunteer or fire department is obligated to respond to first. So throughout the state, this meeting, I mentioned it to them, Granville, Shinston, Morgantown, Clarksburg has it because their first due incorporates their corporate limits. But they've elected, Bridgeport's done it, also Elkins has done it, and I'm sure a host of others. This allows them to bill people outside the corporate limits for that fire protection and fire service. And then the requisite would be that our city folks would respond to those first due incidences in those areas. So we're kind of working through the questions on that and what that would require for us to be able to enact something like that. I just want to brief you guys on it because the discussions are happening. And I think ultimately that's a policy question for you all, right? But we're just kind of doing our due diligence and homework at the behest of the fire chief to say, hey, I think this would be really beneficial to us as a department to be able to take the next step. And we're concerned, right? We see the lack of volunteers over time. And our department's done a really good job of retaining people, but it's difficult to keep that. Yeah, and ultimately, I think we're going to end up being responsible for some of these other departments, and they fall by the wayside if they can't keep their volunteer numbers up. So we're trying to be proactive, prepare ourselves for that, and also, like we talked today, Elkins they took the burden off of their volunteers to raise money for their fire engines, their equipment, and so essentially, then the volunteers are just showing up and being firefighters, which is, I think, a good thing. It takes a lot of pressure off of them, right, as a department. So that costs money, that costs a fee, but we're trying to figure out if there's a way for us to make that work. So what we'll spend the next couple of months doing is working on getting our census data, figuring out how many residents, how many commercial spaces. They charge a per square foot price for commercial areas, for commercial businesses for their fire fee. And then also the relationship with the county fire fee. How does that affect that? So we're going to do some more homework on it, but I just want to let you know that conversation's happening. And we want to essentially put a proposal together to bring to you all and say, what do you think? Is this something we can move forward with? And we've got to, in essence, create an education campaign and say, this is why we're doing this, right? Because,
for some businesses out 33, this is another reason to want to be annexed into the city. Yep.
Yeah, so I think we have the ability to charge a premium for those people outside the corporate limits. So if you charge that premium, then it gives you some motivation to bring more people to come in. So yeah, that's definitely the thought process. Okay, this is a little bit easier. I got a request from the Democrat today or I think maybe yesterday for Lewis County graduates. So they're putting together the graduate letter, or the news edition, or they advertise, and typically businesses will put an ad in saying, hey, congratulations to the graduates. They asked if the city would like to put one in. I think it's around $100, $150. I don't think we did. But I was going to take it out of council's.
Beautification.
Yeah. You've got $1,000, but I thought that was something. If you guys are okay with that, I'd go ahead and put that in there for you all to wish them well.
I
right?
think the entire 17,
Okay.
everyone.
I'll be more than willing to do that. So I'll work with them. We've paid the Democrat a lot of money this year, but I think we've built a pretty good relationship with them, and they've been good to us and helped us. We've exceeded deadlines, get things in there and advertised, so I like to try to support them. We've also got an ad coming out in the economic review. We put the 4 museums, including Tala. So we had Tala, the library and war memorial, glass and military museum. We advertised those 4 and said,
Good job.
please come to Weston and explore and all that kind of stuff this summer. So we're trying to get our name out there and make sure people have a positive image of who we are. Library roof. So I got a message from Katrina late today to say she had approached the county commission about funding for the library roof.
It was on today's agenda.
Was that okay? So it looked like from our conversation that her lowest quote was for $62,000. She's applied, I think she has about 10,000 on hand that they could contribute, the library, if I'm not wrong. She's applied for a $10,000 grant, but she's short of 62,000 by whatever that number ends up being. And so I think the result of the conversation from the county commission to her was approach the city and see if they'd be willing to match their amount or whatever, $25,000. I'm not asking for that today, but I thought my message to Katrina was we'll put you on the agenda for regular session if she wants to come request it. I think that's,
So the county agreed to fund 25,000
Yeah.
if the city matches, or just,
I don't know if there was a caveat in there for 25. I don't think their contribution necessarily required ours, but I can get clarification on that. That was the way I
well, I
understood
think
it.
that at our community meeting that we had at the Masonic Temple, that council members were very much in agreement on the need for helping out with that. So hopefully we'll see that on our regular agenda.
Yeah, that's my plan. I'm going to invite Katrina to come make her
Good.
pitch. I
Sure.
think that's proper, but I just wanted to let you know that's where we stood, and I think that's where the ask will come in at. Then I think finally here, just Columbia Club. Our contractors wrapped up for the most part, I think, for the front facade. You can see that. We had a meeting with the architect. He's trying to get on the roof this
Little
week.
camel.
Extension ladder to get the detail done for the roof bidding, to get that secured. And then the next thought is roof and then drainage and those may be done in conjunction with one another. And hopefully, if we have enough money, our demolition contractor suggested his main forte is stucco. And so he says, the only way you can really fix that is make that facade kind of blend all together, different materials and security issues and stuff like that, is the stucco it. So I approached the architect with this suggestion. So what do you think about that? And he was kind of the same vein of thought. So if we have enough money, we're going to try to secure the front with at least a base layer of stucco or primer or something to make it kind of blend in with the rest of the building, right? Look like it's not just sticking out like an eyesore right now. But
So your Columbia Club meeting on Friday went well?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, like I said, we've had some struggles with takeoff here, I think, and getting people lined up. And part of that is I'm just being too overwhelmed to keep my finger on the pulse long enough, I think, with different contractors and consultants and stuff. But we had a come to Jesus with the architect, said we've got to make some hard deadlines and figure out how we're going to do this stuff. And so at this point, we're going to take that approach and move forward and see what we can do with that timeline. And so, yeah, it was contingent on the good weather. We didn't have that the last 2 days to get out there and get on the street. So he's set to be there this week.
I have a question
I
about
do have
that.
a question.
But I thought they were supposed to take it down brick by brick, but they were just marking it.
The idea was that we weren't going to bring an excavator up there with a big bucket, and tear it off there, right? And we said by hand. And so I think we tried to stress to them as much as we could that this needed to be done as delicate as possible. Now, I think the contractor does get a little bit of the breathing room there to say they can kind of control means and methods. But I think they were a little bit more aggressive than they should have been.
I drive by now, I'm like, is that okay? Is this going to fall?
Nah, I think we're okay. We've looked at it a couple days, a couple times now, gone back and forth. But even the contractor himself said, this can't stay here every winter, right? We've got to get this buttoned up in some capacity before we have another seasonal change. We're going to damage the building. So that's what we're going to try to pull that all off this year. So see, we're flying by the seat of our pants on that project. But That's all we really can do, I think, at this point.
Have we heard anything else about any other grants that have been applied for?
The girls submitted so we had the phase 2 we're working with phase 1 money right now, so they submitted phase 2. Where I don't think we're super confident in that effort, just because we're not far enough along with the phase 1 at this time. We think we're gonna get dinged a little bit for it, but we submitted it. And then PAWV was a bigger pot of money that was submitted, and we haven't heard back from that today, or as of today,
So where are we with what the city has to contribute?
We're still in phase
We're
one.
still phase
Yeah.
1 and that was 60,000
Yeah.
we contribute?
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so after that, you have to come back and ask for more, right?
From,
That's what I'm saying, if
Yeah.
there's another match, we have to approve that.
yeah, and we're
Sure.
trying to, like, with this phase 1, our street department showed up and pulled some brick out of there. Andy went up there and cut out some flooring. We're tracking that stuff because we're trying to use that as match monies for our city portion, because we can do that from what I understand. So we're gonna try to save the city some of that 60,000. But yeah, at some point, we're gonna have to match, if we get a phase 2 award, we're gonna have to match that somehow, whether it's with cash or in-kind donations or whatever that is.
The one grant though, for 200,000 can be utilized
Yes,
as
it
match.
is. Yeah, I knew
Yeah.
that, yeah. So I just wondered if we've heard
So we're
it.
really hoping to get, well, it hasn't been,
I thought, is that the one?
That's the PAWD.
Yeah,
right,
that's the-
and that was just submitted recently.
Right.
So
I think
we're not-
midsummer we'll probably hear about that, be my guess. And so if we can get that one, I think we'll really be cooking with gas, in the sense that we'll be able to use those funds to leverage against other funds,
Right.
which will really help us out.
I have a question about these contracts and stuff. Do we have like an end date where we say, okay, this project has to be done by this date? And then if it goes longer, it,
Penalizes the
yes,
contractor.
monetarily. Yes.
We don't, and it's
Okay.
something we could consider.
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking about that, and I'll tell you why. Because we're street paving last year in that contract.
Mhm.
And then I was wondering about when the Columbia Club, and there were a few days that seemed like it just wasn't moving along. And so I thought, well, maybe we should consider doing that. Thought that I would just throw it out there.
Contractor starts late. I think he's got something else going on,
Uh-huh.
doesn't he, in the mornings or something? They've been
Bless
like
his
terrible.
heart.
All the above. All the above.
Yes.
We don't, and
Oh, they.
from my point of view, I guess I should say at this point, I haven't done that because that has a tendency to put pressure on a contractor, which I think we agree would be helpful,
Right?
but will drive up, a lot of times it drives up the cost. Yeah, and so I've just kind of taken the tax stuff in Weston. Yes, you always do that in a contract, but I've been
Right.
trying to save us money and say, things move slow here. We can kind of allow these things to take their time if it saves us a few dollars, right?
Sometimes that'll get you.
Sometimes it'll get us, right?
It did last year with paving,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but in that instance, I don't know that that would have saved us on that.
I
mean-
think we were.
What I meant by getting is if you have other things planned or we want to move on to,
Sure.
Right.
you're saving a little bit of money, but in the long run, you're replacing
Right,
a tremendous amount of time.
right.
We can. So it's a give and take. I mean, I think it's like with this demolition, if it took 4 weeks, it took 3 weeks, it didn't really matter a whole lot, right? And then at the end of this game, it was painful in a sense to have to sit there another week and throw books around and stuff, but we've got the job done. We've moved forward now. And hopefully we can move on to the next thing, but and we may run into that like with our roofing contract. If we're waiting for the retaining wall guy says, hey, I'm not getting into that roof because there's slate hanging off of it and they can decapitate me.
Sure.
We may need to put some conditions in there and say, hey, this roof's gotta be done by a certain minute.
Sure.
But we gotta get this project done, right?
Yeah.
Within a certain amount of time. So that's my thinking on it. Good or
Okay.
bad, but that's where I'm at with it.
Just thought I.
I think it's a good point.
The house below I've been talking to, 218, all those trees back. Did you say those guys cutting them, is gonna clear all that out of there?
That was my understanding, that the tree guys come back and say, well, that's not what I understood. You know, we just got a verbal, well, we got a quotation for the trees we discussed. That was probably my mistake. So at this point, I don't think any more trees are coming out of there unless we pay him more. When we originally started that project, the demolition contractor was saying, I'm going to access the property through the rear.
Yeah.
So we were going to take all those trees out so they could access the property. This Clerk guy, as you've seen, is not accessing the property from the rear. He's just coming from the front. So, I mean, I'm fine with the trees that are there,
Mhm.
and it's not our property. I think we've done our due diligence there. Now, council decides they want to do something different. I'm fine calling a contractor and doing it.
Just cleaning up, because I mean, we voted on it to be cut down and cleaned out. What's cut down already, is what I'm talking.
Oh, okay.
If there's
Yeah.
no more trees, that's fine, but everything
Okay.
that's laying.
Yeah, I think we'll get all that. He said, yeah, he had a tough time getting that big log out of there. Now, it was valuable, so he wanted to get that thing out of there. The other stuff, he said, can I wait until this log's been restored before I come in there and clean that up? And he said, we're fine with that. So
Yeah.
that's where we stood with it.
So they are coming.
Yeah. And if they don't, for some reason, we can go up there and take the wood out.
Because
right?
we'll be in violation of our own ordinance. I think,
Yeah, right.
If it
Right.
stays down and, kind of
Yeah,
like,
I agree with you. So,
if you knock it down, pick it up. That's basically what I told the contractors that were contracting for Synergy.
okay. I think that's all made my list today, as far as.
Can I- When we're
Sure.
talking about what about our properties on Main that we took down? Have we put those up for sale? We put liens on these things?
No, we've placed a lien on one that we haven't been able to acquire at this point. We've had some miscommunication or whatnot with the homeowner and haven't been able to make that connection to get the deed. I think it's still my understanding for conversation, our latest conversation, that it's gonna happen. But we went ahead and placed a lien, it'll cost us $25 to take it off, but we did that to make sure that property gets sold.
Is that in Kidsonville?
Yeah. The other one's ours, it's there. I think, it's proximity to Kitsonville School at this point. I was kind of holding it in my back pocket there in case something flushed out with that school, if there's gonna be a development or something at that point, so I haven't made a move to sell that or tried, but I mean, if that's something we feel we need to do now, we
Well,
could.
maintenance is what I think we were thinking about, and is the property owner that's right in between, sandwiched between those two
Yeah.
properties, is that property owner interested in it? And also, I think, wasn't it Kidsonville School that we just had a citizen concern form on because of the roof
Yeah,
dropping off of it?
I can't imagine. And Mike even looked at it. I think it's the wind that caught their shingles
Okay.
and blew them off. And she's saying it's from the roof of the school.
Oh, someone's shingles.
It's not
Yeah.
school.
Someone's.
No, it's not the school. School has slate.
Okay,
And I forget the
And this was
forget
shingle.
girl.
okay.
She's saying that their slate is falling over on their roof and putting holes in.
I'll look into it. I didn't catch that one, but,
Okay.
so that's would been I've just been kind of, for us to know it for the summer, it's gonna cost a little bit of money, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
I just didn't
Oh,
know.
I
if we
don't
were-
think it's-
No, I just didn't know, I thought
It's
the
not-
whole thing was to recoup some of our costs.
I think they have the ability to, right? That was my thought with it, but, and then our one on CVS, so that, we never acquired that one, that deal fell through, right? And then Mulberry, I think that was never in the works, and that was just a.
But we put liens on those, right?
Properties, yeah. So, and some of them, I think, which, like 218 doesn't have a lien yet. So you kind of have to wait till your invoice comes through and you pay your contractor, right? So then you can use that as justification to put the lien on. That one doesn't have a lien.
A lot of be worth big money.
At 218 Clerk.
Get that gorilla paper.
Nice.
Well, I'm out of this, that's why I wanted to do that.
Have you heard anything back from that land, those landowners? on the-
Yeah.
No.
There is a lien for the municipal fees on 218. But I have not put one on it yet for the tearing the house down because we don't know how much. it's gonna cost.
Yeah. Have you talked to them verbally or has it just been in correspondence?
I guess it's just been in correspondence from the standpoint, you serve them, and if they don't respond back to you, there's nothing more we're required to do,
Yeah, I just didn't know if they knew they could sign it over to us.
We expressed that to them earlier, and we were kind of missed that conversation when we did this. And so I think as soon as we called their lawyer, that possibility probably was extinguished. And I mean, maybe I should mute the phone, but I mean, anybody could go out there and pay the taxes on the property, $600, and get that lot, and we won't be able to recoup any of what was expended. Right? They'll be able to get that clean deed at some point. So that's where it stands. Unless we were hoping to ask the auditor yesterday, we get a chance to, because we were like, yeah, can we somehow grandfather that into being able to acquire that in this new program? So I'll keep an eye on it. As soon as we get the ability to do that, it may cost us $600, but that lot worth $600? I don't know.
No,
Nah, I don't think so either, so. Somebody's got to know it, we're probably gonna end up
I
knowing
know.
it.
It's gonna cost us $600.
We'll put more liens on it. Yeah. Do best we can.
well, they got the front tore off. Took a big bite out of the front anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
to Start with. I haven't seen them every few days, but
It's no.
We'll
good
say,
thing it doesn't have a basement. Thank goodness for that.
yeah, it's piers in it. It's
Yeah, I was
such a
wondering
little-
about that. I thought, man, if that has a basement, it's gonna be a
Got a bomb
mess.
shelter in the back.
Does it?
Does it really?
I don't know.
No.
Cellar inside the
You
hill.
know what, I believe you.
It's a shelter inside the hillside.
I'll bet it's a little fruit salad.
Is that all you have?
That's all I've got on my list, yep.
Thank you.
Any other
The
questions?
packet of information that we got from Brian.
Okay, yeah, you talk about American Legal, yeah.
The American Legal, our deadline is April 30th to submit the comments that I've made on that document that I sent you all. If you all, I just wanted to run that by you. You all can look at it or whatnot, and most of it, as I still feel, most of it is just updating state code provision type stuff. There was a couple issues with First Amendment type language with parade permits and carrying signs and talking on the streets and stuff like that, that I thought needed updated from the standpoint of putting what the Supreme Court calls language that would, the language used to be incite imminent lawlessness, which includes fighting. They call fighting words. And they've changed that language a little bit, but it still means the same thing, that somebody that would hear what you're saying, that cause them to right then and there get violent, for lack of a better way to say it. It's not what it calls them to go home and think for 10 days and then get violent. It has to cause it just at that moment. And that was some of the biggest, probably one of the two biggest constitutional issues in the thing. Second, we can choose what language we want in those First Amendment type things, but I think the closer we stay to what the Supreme Court has said, I think the easier it's going to be to defend it in a court if we never get taken to court for that. And I think that's what item was that in that package y'all have, item 56 or 53 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But there's 4 or 5 different places there that I think require that updated language. And then the other big one was for the sanitary board, the way, what I perceive the most recent sanitary board needs to be indicates that when you don't pay your bill and your bill becomes delinquent, the sanitary board can go out there and shut off your sewer, shut off whatever.
Water.
The water
company shuts it off.
Okay, and according to the Supreme Court, when I say Supreme Court, I mean United States Supreme Court, that procedure, that process is not appropriate. You have to have, and this is quoted from the Supreme Court case, some kind of hearing before you turn somebody's water off, before you shut their gas off, before you shut their sewer off.
Really?
And there was no, in the what I perceived to be the most recent sanitary board, this was like 96, something from 96. There was no option. Once they said you're delinquent, they could go out and shut the water off,
I don't think
whatever.
you have to have a hearing.
I'm just reading what Supreme Court.
These
Case law
utilities
says.
here, they don't.
It all has to do with Public Service Commission, like the
Yeah.
maintenance who we deal with, and they
Right.
regulate us, and if somebody doesn't pay their bill in 2 or 3 months, we go out and shut them off.
Well, and that may be what we're doing, that there's case law that says you have to have some kind of hearing. Now, how, did you have to have it in front of the United States Supreme Court? No, you have to have it in front of somebody, maybe at the sanitary board. Yeah,
We shut hundreds of people off every month. Could you imagine having a hearing for 200
Yeah.
people a month? That's just not how it works. I mean, it's regulated through the Public Service
Can we
Commission.
call PSC and ask for some clarification on that?
yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to go with that.
Mayor Kent.
I noticed that in your review, and I talked to Dee about it and Tracy, and they said that it is the PSC's ruling, and she was gonna send you that language, and I just talked to her today about that. And also, they do have an in-house policy on like disputes over billing, and she was also gonna share that with you too.
Okay, good deal. We'll get it straightened out.
It's for the meeting unless you're a Zoomer.
What, as far as the code, we've never provided that to council, have we? I mean, it's sitting right there in that big
No.
stack of papers.
Yeah, I emailed them. It should be in,
Yeah.
Well, that's the comments from American Legal, right? But
yes,
as far as the actual draft code
Oh.
with that big blue box or stack of paper. That's our draft, that's the draft new code
You
left.
showed it to us.
I have a
Okay.
question on page 4.
of
It,
this?
it
Okay.
addresses, an ordinance passed by the city of Buchanan was included in the materials concerning animals. I don't know what that was, but
somewhere in one of the books, there's a big old ordinance from, that has Buchanan's, it must have been their recorder and their mayor or something. It's
Okay.
not signed by anybody in Lewis County. They're not
Yeah.
right in there.
we had one that we adopted, about dogs. And that was,
But I don't think this was, what, I think, you might be speaking of what we know as vicious dog. ordinance.
yes.
This is something
Okay.
way beyond, this. I don't hate to use that phrase way beyond, but it's something that's not that. This thing is like a 15-page ordinance in font 8 type. It's
That was
just
from
from Buchanan used
way
in some
back, I
capacity.
guess.
But when I mean, the process of this was, we got our ordinance books out, and we scanned those in digitally, and I just shipped them out to American Legal, because my hair was on fire when we first started this. They found, I think, references to certain streets in Martinsburg in there for some of those ordinances, and things of that nature. where
Yeah.
Most likely a previous council at some point copied and pasted an ordinance and didn't catch that, right? So we caught a few instances of that in here.
Is that digital?
We can
Big
provide
blue
that to you. Yeah, that big book.
The blue one?
Yeah. I'm just curious, I mean, for
I think you guys need to
quick
see it.
reference, for you, if you're thinking we may need to create a new ordinance, if you could just zip through that, or through the digital and see if we have it already, if it's in place or.
I mean, ultimately, I think if, let's pretend we send this out to American Legal tomorrow and they put it on the internet by Thursday, we could type it in on our website and find vicious dog ordinance.
Right.
Right.
And if we didn't like that, we could change it. I think that's ultimately what's gonna happen.
Right.
But
Sure,
but-
people, citizens hopefully will read it and bring it to our attention.
And on page 4, whenever you're talking about manager plan, form of government, that's really city manager dash mayor form of government. And the only reason that
Do I get that one confused every time? Because I think
You
it's,
do.
I always thought it was the manager count.
No, it's city manager dash mayor, and I think if you look that up on the municipal leagues page, it'll indicate that.
Yeah.
And I
Plan
try
5 or
to keep
something
it
like that,
straight
yeah.
because there are so many different types.
So manager mayor.
It's like, when you look at the state statute, there's 6 plans for your government, right? So it's plan 5 or 6 or something like that. You're just right there.
I'll make any comments on other changes.
But I agree with you about the city manager being the administrative head. I think that was the
I mean, I think
intention.
that's, I'm gonna sound mean, I think that's the total clear intent.
Yeah.
We're shifting that from the mayor to somebody else.
Agreed. Any other comments about that?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're just kind of rehash the timeline. We're gonna submit our comments back to them, right? But once we get this back, I mean, we're gonna pass an ordinance that is this code. It's gonna be that whole thick blue thing, right? That's basically we'll throw out all the old code, and say, now this is the city code of Weston. And then going forward, when the city attorney's writing an ordinance, he won't just be writing an ordinance saying, hey, this is what we'd like to do. He's gonna say, City Weston Council's passing an ordinance to amend section 5-3 of the Weston City Code to state as such. So I think, this is my impression, is they need a copy of that draft ordinance to at least familiarize themselves, give you the opportunity to flip through it. You know, I don't expect you to read it, chapter and verse, but eventually your guys are gonna get that to pass that whole thick thing. And so,
Okay.
and I think when we do that, we probably put that on the website and make that available and kind of make a big deal out of it for everybody in town to be able to come in there and do these things. And essentially, if there's things in there we don't like sidewalks, that's one of the things we hit our head up against the wall a couple of times, right? Saying, whose responsibility is this? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this gives us the opportunity to kind of strike that language and say, stick something in there that we think fits better or clarify certain parts of it. So if you guys read through that and you see a section, so this really doesn't make any sense for us to continue to do that. I think it's your prerogative to say, at least say, hold up, let's make sure we get this right. And when we canonize this thing, it's going to be corrected.
Because they brought it up to date as far as legal language, but we may want to change
And
something to.
They're not making, they're not sitting there saying, the city of Weston, maybe you should think about doing your sidewalks differently, right? They just
Right.
took our ordinance and stuck it in there. As long
Well,
as
and they informed us that they would bring it up to date as far as legal.
references and stuff like that.
Yeah, but as far as fitting for our remote city here, we may want to change things at a later date or.
Yeah, and once we submit this, once we pass the proverbial ordinance to make this the official code again, we're not chained to whatever's in here. You all can always change
Sure.
anything you want to. Somebody comes in and says, hey, I don't like the sidewalks, let's change that ordinance, or hey, I don't like the vicious dog ordinance, let's get that changed.
Yeah.
This stuff is never set in stone. It's just an update, for lack of a better word.
May cost us a little more, we might have to buy the one change a month plan instead of the one change a year plan. That's-
But it did need updated.
It did.
For sure, it was,
We were on the once in a generation update plan.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. For a second,
I'll second.
Randy, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
These meetings.
Was it all soggy?
You need to have problems with that ordinance. So you can write it up. Yeah.
I'm working on an ordinance so I can write it.
Yeah. Like it was.